Welcome to Let's Talk Ball. I'm Thad Brown along with Carl Jones. This is the Thursday after Bills and Jets. Now, we will talk a little Bills and Jets, but the Bills have added a player. Everybody knows about him, Amari Cooper, and that's what I want to talk about most, the fit, what he looks like, what he's got left. And, Carl, I'm sure you, like me, spent some time going through, his snaps from this year, some of his snaps from last year. Give me your take on what kind of player Amari Cooper is right this second. Not necessarily the guy that played with the Raiders or the Cowboys or the Browns, but as a 30-year-old in year 9 of his NFL career, what are the Bills getting in Amari Cooper?
They're getting a receiver who I think can stretch the field vertically. And I know that sounds a little weird, a 30-year-old receiver who isn't necessarily a burner, but I think he's really crafty down the field. He's really good on the sideline, the toe taps, the little nudges to get a little bit of separation, because he's not going to create a lot down the field. I mean, as a Browns, like growing up in Cleveland, I've been watching him for the past 3 or 4 years in Cleveland, and he never really looks open down the field, but he always figures out a way to come down with some of the more contested catches. So I think that'll stretch the Bills' offense vertically, which they've sorely needed. I've been saying this since the offseason. They feel like an offense that's like in New York City, like 6 o'clock traffic. It's just very congested, and hopefully he'll take them to the highway a little bit where they can live a little bit and go to some fast break offense. So I think that's the type of guy they're going to get.
I think the fact we're talking about Amari Cooper at age 30 as a vertical weapon is more a comment on who the Bills have at receiver than on Amari Cooper. Now, look, I agree with you. He can get down the field, but I don't think we should think of him as a straight line. No. He's going to go for 50. He can get down the field running corners, running posts. He can, like that 20-yard, I call it the oh shit fade. When the blitz comes and all you got is a one-on-one down the sideline, it won't be for 50, it'll be for 20. He can make those plays all day long, and it's going to be an incredible help for the Bills, especially for, Josh Allen, when he gets those blitzes, to be able to know I got a guy on the edge that I think is going to win more often than not, and he probably will because of the contested catch ability. One of my favorite things about Amari Cooper is the way he changes speeds when he runs routes. There is a touchdown this year against the Commanders. I hope y'all, if you have access to the film, go find it, because it's a play-action pass where Cooper comes off the line, and it looks like he's walking, like he's taking the play off. And look, we don't talk about this a lot in the NFL. There are plays where if they're running right and you're the receiver way out to the left, you and the DB kind of have an agreement, like, let's just look busy and we'll hang. That does happen occasionally in the NFL. And that's what it looks like he's doing on this play. But then all of a sudden, right at the moment the play action happens, snaps his fingers, couple moves with his feet, and he's wide open in the end zone. And he does that stuff all the time because I like the way that when he runs routes, he kind of glides. He's not running hard all the time. So he's got a great ability to change speeds. And, when a defensive back has seen him run at 75, 80% all day, then he goes to 100, it's too late before you have a chance to react. So there's a lot of good here for Cooper for sure. But Carl, let's compare him to what a guy the Bills have seen in Stefan Diggs, because he's basically going to assume the Stefan Diggs number 1 role. Where on the Stefan Diggs spectrum of his Bills career would you put, if you want to compare current Amari Cooper to that right now?
I wouldn't think this is 2020 or 2021 Diggs. I know the back half of 2022 wasn't great, so maybe you can go somewhere in the stratosphere of 2022 Diggs, I guess you can say. Like, I don't think that he's a guy where, hey, no matter who's across from him, you feel great with his matchup. I don't think that I know he gets touted as a really good route runner, but I do think at times it gets a little, because he is so smooth sometimes, it's not as sharp as it needs to be. I think that's something that, as someone who watches the Browns every Sunday, that's something that, like, very smooth. He can separate with the best of them. But sometimes he's so smooth that it isn't precise and it throws off the passing timing just a little bit. And that wasn't Diggs' issue. Diggs was always on time, on target. He can get in and out of a cuts with the best of them, even with like Justin Jeffersons of the world. That's what Diggs can do. So if you're assuming that he's going to be Diggs from like the Cole Beasley area, I don't know about all of that. But if you're thinking the latter 2 years of Diggs' career in Buffalo, I think he can get in the ballpark of that.
Yeah, I agree too. And I think that in terms of the comparison of the route running is a great place to discuss this, because you're right. Stefan Diggs was a razor sharp route runner. Everything was point to point to point, in, out, break, break. Whereas, Cooper, I don't want to say he round or bananas his routes, but it's not quite as precise. And that's really more a comment on how good Diggs was at it than any negative towards Amari Cooper. Let's also talk for a second here about the drops. It's been a thing. He has 9 or 6. I mean, I hate drop stats because they're so subjective. You know, you might think it's 5, I might think it's 7, and we're both right. Here's the thing. Drops are an issue. And in Cleveland, some of the drops were a Deshaun Watson issue. He's awful as a quarterback right now. But there was an interception that hit Cooper right on the 2 against the Raiders, and it bounced off his chest and turned into a pick. So again, and I think, you know, without breaking down each drop, whose fault it was, the point is that this is a really good receiver, but it's not a ridiculously top-end elite receiver. This is probably a guy who's going to live in the 10 to 15 range than the 1 to 10 range. So let me ask you this question. If the Bills are getting 10 to 15, which is incredibly better than what they have, is this really good enough to make them a Super Bowl team? This is a discussion AJ Feldman and I had a couple days ago. I want to get your take. You know, where can Amari Cooper take the Bills? Let's assume they don't do anything else and they're generally healthy.
I tend to think he's 15 to 20, but that's because I think there's a lot of really good.
I think there's a good argument for that right now. That's fine. Yeah.
Not a knock on Coop, it's a knock on, man. There's some darn good receivers in the league right now. But I do think they're a super. Do I think the window is as open as it was in maybe the 13 seconds year? No, I don't think they're as strong as that team. But I think a move like this, and I saw you talk about it on X, and I did the same. It kind of slots everyone down a road, which makes everyone else better because of that. So Mac Hollins isn't going to be running double moves on 3rd down and then the gunner on 4th down. Like that. No disrespect to Mac Hollins, no offensive coordinator wants to ever live in that world where I'm asking my receiver to go be a ball winner on 3rd down and now he got to go chase a punt. Like, that's just not ideal. Khalil Shakir, living in a slot, won't have to go up against Marlon Humphrey. That's now Amari Cooper's job. So, yeah, I think that they can compete for a Super Bowl. Do I think they're above the Chiefs or the Ravens at this point? No. I know the Texans they're 5-1. I don't even think they play great right now, which is kind of scary because I think they could look a lot better come December. But yeah, I don't know why they couldn't be in that conversation as long as Amari Cooper blends and meshes and the drops that he's had is more of a Browns issue and more of the contract disgusted by the contract negotiations thing as opposed to he's falling off a bit, if you get what I'm saying there.
Yeah. Let me ask you quick as a guy who's followed the Browns. The drops were an issue before this year, right? Now, it's not I don't want to harp on it because it's not the worst thing ever. The guy wouldn't be getting this big in this trade or be this coveted a piece if drops were that much an issue. But this isn't the guy with the most dependable hands ever either.
No, but I think that he's one of those receivers who, because he's so explosive in other areas of his game, you'll live with it's frustrating as hell. It's frustrating as hell when it hits you right in the 2 and it pops into a safety's lap. But you'll live with it because he can go for 85 yards per game with an occasional drop every other week.
I'm going to circle back to the Stefan Diggs comparison because this is the thing that I was thinking about a lot. And I agree with you. I think you want to put him somewhere between latter half 22 and what happened last year. If you do that, the Bills offense that finished the season last year, I think might be pretty comparable to the offense we're going to get. You think about the pieces. I think Shakir's a little better. Kincaid's the same. You know, you probably could exchange Gabe Davis for Keon Coleman. They're not the same guy, but in terms of level of production, they're probably pretty similar. The O-line, I think it's a credit to Connor McGovern that you can flip out Mitch Morse and go to McGovern to think they're about the same. But I end up in a spot where this is probably going to be the offense we saw last year with Stefan Diggs. And even though Diggs wasn't productive, you and I both watched him, the guy was still getting open. You know, it wasn't like he wasn't doing his job. So if the Bills are the same offense as last year, I think my concern is we looked at that offense last year and said they don't separate. Now, we know Cooper will. Well, Diggs did last year. If I'm a defense, I'm going to look at this Bills offense, I think like defenses did last year, and say, well, yeah, we're going to take Cooper and we're going to put a corner close. We're going to put a safety over the top. We're going to put a linebacker inside. And I don't mind because all the rest of them guys, I can still put one guy on them. And now I'm not as okay as I was a week ago when I could send 6 and cover with 5 and feel like I'm winning. I got to probably cover with 6 now. But I still feel pretty good about that if I'm a defensive coordinator. Am I wrong?
No, I don't think you're wrong in saying that at all. And that's where you're going to need some internal development from either a Kincaid, a Keon, or a Khalil Shakir. And I think the Kincaid piece is the most alarming one in all of this. I think Khalil Shakir is a good receiver, point blank period. He's going to sniff, depending on health, he's going to be a really good number 2 receiver for the Bills. But Kincaid is the player who I think if he can take a step and be a legit top 6 tight end in the league, then it changes the dynamic. It changes the entire dynamic because now you have 2 players who can operate in the underneath portions of the field, and then you have Amari Cooper, who I don't want to always send him on deep routes, but he can be an explosive player in that way. So I think Kincaid is, because I'm not really going to rely on Keon Coleman's development at this point. Not saying I don't think he's a good player. I just think what you need of a player in the playoffs, excuse me, he's not quite there yet. At least in October.
Yeah, it's too much to ask of a rookie. I think that's the way to put it. You just can't expect that from the guy in his first year. And you're making a good point with Cooper, by the way. And one thing that when you build an NFL receiver room, you don't want your number one to be the deep threat because you don't want him to have to keep running deep. You want someone else to be able to do that. So that's another issue the Bills have to deal with. For me, I've had the Kincaid conversation a lot of times the same way you are with, I want him to be top 6, top 5, top 3, whatever. I want to change that. I don't want him to be that productive. What I want him to be able to do is to win physically. And how many times have we seen him do that this year? It feels very rarely. Couple good routes for sure, but he's not a guy that's going to just body up a defensive back and out jump him for a ball. And I think that was something that I thought he'd be able to do coming out of college. Doesn't mean he still can't. He's in the middle of year 2. He's got time to develop. That to me is what I want to see, because when Josh Allen drops back right now, when he looks at Amari Cooper's way, he feels good that Cooper's going to win physically. Khalil Shakir is a different guy. He's going to win mentally. It's a different thing, but it's just as effective. I need that third guy to win physically, even if it's 2 times a game, which it might be, the way this passing game and the fact that Bills are running the ball so well, the way it's panned out. So that to me is the thing I want from Dalton Kincaid, and the thing I'm hoping to get, going forward alongside of Amari Cooper. Because with Cooper, yeah, I think the Bills have a chance. They're in, you look at the AFC, there's a top 4 group. The Bills are in it right now, for sure. Right. But can they beat those other 3 teams? I have my doubts this second.
I think you need, in those conversations and that type of year, you need 3 guys who can win, because the other teams are going to always have a number 1 corner, whether that's the Chiefs with McDuffie, the Ravens with Marlon Humphrey, if it's his Sunday, he's up and down. And then the Texans with Derek Stingley, they'll have number 2 guys who they trust as well. But rarely do teams have a third guy they can trust. And that's where a Kincaid will really be beneficial in the postseason.
It's a great point on everybody having number 1 corners. Just like there's a lot of great receivers out there, it seems like everybody has awesome corners. All right, let's talk about Bills Jets just for a brief moment here. I know that's pretty far in the rearview mirror, but I just want to get a few things off our chest. For me, the number 1 thing that stood out to me was the run game in the first half. This was a great Joe Brady scheme. A couple of the 10, 15, 14-yard hitters the Bills had were blocked up so well. Like when to explain to the people who are listening and watching, when you set up a run block, you're trying to get leverage. You'll hear a lot of talk about an offensive lineman might have a defensive lineman to his right, and he wants to try and get out in front of him so he can create leverage to push it back to the left and run behind. Well, in this game, there were multiple runs where not only did the old lineman have leverage, he had like 3 gaps of leverage. There were guys coming down from like left guard, drilling a linebacker to the right. It's the easiest block in the world. Me and you could have made the block. I swear we could have made the block. And that's a credit to Joe Brady, because it felt like he was just inside the Jets huddle knowing, well, they're going to do this, this, and this. So I want to have my offensive line set. And they weren't doing it with anything complicated. It was just, I know I've got leverage here. A couple of the blocks were just letting the Jets defensive linemen or linebackers run to the wrong spot and then pinning them there. So a ton of credit to Joe Brady, because there's a lot that he did right, especially early in this game, that helped set the tone. But another part of setting the tone was number 22. And no disrespect to James Cook, but Carl, Ray Davis runs a little bit different than James Cook does.
Yeah, as a defensive back, there's a big difference between catching somebody and hitting them. And there was a whole lot of catching going on with them Jets DBs, where they were just sitting there like, all right, I'm going to just take this. And if he run me over, so be it. I'm going to just grab on for dear life. I've seen players, and no disrespect to James Cook, we're not afraid to come at him and collide with him. Ray Davis, it was like, all right, here we go. I'm ready. Like, come on, just come here. Like, you about to take me for 4 yards. It is what it is. And I think it's a huge testament to how hard he runs. And obviously, he was going like 6, 7 yards untouched. Like, you ever seen the Twitter question where like, hey, could a random civilian get 10 yards? Yes, in this game. Yeah, they sure could. Now, I don't know if you could get 11 because you might get knocked out after that 10th yard. But that boy was running real hard yesterday. And I think it kind of speaks to how the Bills have built this offensive line and running game throughout the past year and a half, where during the Brian Daboll era, early Ken Dorsey, it was a lot of zone stuff. It was a lot of stretch, and not necessarily they wanted to be a finesse team, but that's kind of how they were constructed. Well, when you bring in a Saibo and then when you change the interior of the offensive lineman, they're trying to get downhill a lot of gap scheme stuff. They're pulling guys and they're going right at you. That kind of fits how Ray Davis runs the rock. And not saying they should bench James Cook. Look, it was one game and things will change as he gets more reps in his career. But man, when you're coming downhill, linemen come downhill, and you got a guy coming downhill like 16, 17 miles per hour right behind him, that's tough on a defense. And I know Sean McDermott was grinning real hard when he saw Ray Davis run that rock Monday night.
And it helps too how successful the Bills have been running. And look, the threat of Josh Allen, we've talked about this before, creates a significant amount of light boxes and opportunities for the Bills to have blocking advantages. And when you do, and then you have that hammers that's going to run and take a 4-yard run and turn it into 10, which Davis did quite a bit on Monday night, it's going to make that running game a whole lot better. James Cook does it too, and he's been a lot stronger the last year or so in terms of the way he runs the ball. But Davis is just naturally bigger, thicker, more powerful. And I think you're right. You don't want to bench James Cook at all, but Davis deserves to get, more touches going forward.
I want to add one thing. One thing real quick. Similar to how the Chiefs get played, where teams do nothing but 2 high safeties against them. Isaiah Pacheco is the same type of back where he tries to run through your damn face. And Andy Reid knows what he's doing where, hey, y'all want to be light in the box. Same reasons where teams do it to Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes. They got some thumpers back there in the backfield. And I think that's the Bills are hoping Ray Davis can be in that same type of mold.
Yeah, I agree that there's a good chance he can do it too. All right, let's talk about the defense real quick. I wanted to get the Carl Jones breakdown of Taylor Rapp's game because, we've talked about Rapp over the years as a guy he's okay, he's fine. Well, he made a couple big time plays, especially the touchdown breakup. And one thing before you get into the X and O's, as best you can, describe for everyone how difficult and how precise you have to be as a defensive back to lay out a guy in the end zone, and even the Jeremy Rucker tight end play, to be able to dislodge the ball and do it legally without getting a pass interference, without getting a personal foul, because Rapp did it twice in that game at full speed in big spots.
Huge, especially in this day and age. A lot of times these personal fouls, you're not thinking, you're just reacting. And the fact that he was able to react and not put either Garrett Wilson and himself in danger says a lot to how locked in he was, because the play that the Jets run was a traditional cover 2, red 2 beater in the red zone where your safety is going to be on each side, cover 2 deep, and then you're going to run right past the backer in the middle of the field. And Rapp did a hell of a job of not shading too much of the corner route that was going to influence him that way, and came right back to the middle of the field, laid out Garrett Wilson. That was a hell of a play. That's one of those plays where they're going to go back on. They went back on film probably Tuesday morning, red dotted it up, rewinded it, froze it, rewound it again, froze it. That's just a really good play. I do want to say that Hail Mary attempt was bad. My boy, I know you got it better than a 19-inch vertical, so we just going to scrap that and act like that never happened. But outside of the Hail Mary, that was definitely, my boy got to get a little bit higher off the ground. We're going to work on the Vertimax this week. That's what the sources are telling me. Regardless, great plays. I didn't know if I was watching 1985 safety play or what, because he was out there thumping.
Do we change our opinion of Rapp from this game? I think both of us have thought that he was a cog in a machine and doing his job but doing nothing special. Do we feel better, more confident about Rapp going forward? I mean, at the very least, he showed that he has it in the bag, right?
More confident, yeah, but I'm not willing to say he's a guy who's going to always do this. And I know the old adage is if you can do it once, you can do it again. But I would like to see it again, and I would like to see it going forward. I mean, they'll have a nice little stretch here where he won't be tested as much. I mean, I guess Geno Smith next week will probably do a little bit, but I would like to see a little bit more, because that group, the safeties in general, I'm still kind of concerned with, especially against the better quarterbacks in the NFL.
All right, fair enough. Anything else from the Jets game for you?
No, I'm just happy that thing is over with, because guess how bad it was watching it live. I was tired of doing the all 22. We can flush that down the toilet and watch the great Tennessee Titans.
The great legendary Titans. Their defense might not be bad, by the way. I'm interested to see, why it can be good, but that's you got to be a hardcore football nerd to be interested in anything that's Tennessee Titan related. All right, as always, you can check out Let's Talk Ball at RochesterFirst.com, on WIVB.com. You can find it on YouTube. You can also find us wherever you get your podcast. We'll be back again next week to talk about the Bills and those, as Carl put them, legendary Titans. For Carl Jones, I'm Thad Brown. Thanks for watching Let's Talk Ball.